This 82-year-old retired teacher's secret from the 1960s would shatter her family's illusions forever. Eleanor sat in her small room at Willow Creek Nursing Home, staring out the window at the autumn leaves swirling in the wind. The place was a modest facility on the outskirts of a small Midwestern town, where the days blended into one another with the routine of meals, medications, and occasional visits from distant relatives. At 82, Eleanor had lived a life full of quiet dedication, teaching generations of children in a one-room schoolhouse before the world changed. Her hands, now wrinkled and spotted with age, once graded papers and held chalk with steady confidence. But lately, her thoughts wandered more to the past, to decisions made in the heat of youth that now cast long shadows over her twilight years. Little did she know that a single envelope arriving that crisp October morning would unravel everything she had carefully hidden for decades. The nursing home was a world unto itself, filled with the soft hum of wheelchairs, rolling down polished hallways, and the distant chatter of staff members sharing gossip during their breaks. Eleanor had been there for 3 years, ever since her hip surgery made independent living impossible. Her children, 2 sons and a daughter scattered across the country, promised frequent visits, but delivered only sporadic phone calls and holiday cards. She understood their busy lives, careers, grandchildren, the relentless pace of modern existence. But the loneliness gnawed at her. In the common room, she would join the other residents for bingo or television, exchanging stories of bygone days with fellow seniors like Harold, a war veteran who rarely spoke of his time in Vietnam, or Martha, a former homemaker whose eyes lit up when recalling her baking triumphs. Yet Eleanor carried a weight none of them knew about, a secret buried deep in her heart from the era of flower power and civil unrest. That morning started like any other. The nurse, a kind young woman named Lisa, brought Eleanor her breakfast tray with a cheerful smile. Eleanor thanked her, picking at the oatmeal while flipping through an old magazine. Then came the mail delivery, a ritual that brought a mix of anticipation and disappointment. Among the bills and newsletters was a thick envelope addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. Eleanor's heart skipped a beat as she slid it open, pulling out a stack of yellowed papers and a photograph that transported her back in time. The image showed a young woman with flowing hair and bell-bottom jeans, standing beside a handsome man in a military uniform, their arms entwined under a canopy of blooming cherry trees. It was her in 1968, during the height of the Vietnam War protests. But the real shock was still coming. As Eleanor unfolded the letter, her hands trembled. It was from a lawyer representing the estate of a man she hadn't thought about in years, Captain Robert Hayes, her secret love from those turbulent times. Robert had been a soldier on leave when they met at a peace rally in Chicago, where Eleanor, then a fresh-faced teacher in her 20s, was marching for civil rights and against the war. Their romance blossomed quickly, fueled by the passion of the era, late-night discussions about Martin Luther King Jr., A's dreams, Bob Dylan's songs playing on the radio, and stolen kisses in the back of a Chevy Impala. But society was different then. Interfaith relationships were frowned upon, and Robert's deployment loomed like a storm cloud. They parted with promises, but life intervened. Eleanor married another man, raised a family, and buried the memory. Now the letter revealed that Robert had never forgotten her, leaving her a substantial inheritance from his savings, including a property he had bought in her name all those years ago. The truth about this hidden asset was about to surface. Before we dive deeper into Eleanor's incredible story, if you're touched by these tales of hidden pasts and family reckonings, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss another nursing home revelation. Eleanor's mind raced as she clutched the documents. How had Robert kept this secret? The property was a small cabin in the woods, purchased in 1970 after his return from Vietnam, deeded to her as a symbol of their unspoken bond. He had never contacted her again, respecting her choice to move on, but now, in death, he was reaching out. The inheritance amounted to over $500,000, once sold, a fortune she had no idea existed. But sharing this with her family meant revealing the affair, the love that predated her marriage to their father. Her late husband, George, had been a steady provider, an engineer who built bridges and a stable home. They had shared 50 years together until his passing 5 years ago. To admit this now felt like betraying his memory. Yet the money could ease her burdens. The nursing home fees were mounting, and her savings were dwindling. She decided to call her eldest son, Michael, a successful lawyer in New York, hoping for guidance. Little did she know her daughter had other plans. Michael arrived 2 days later, his face etched with concern, but his eyes scanning the room for clues. At 55, he was the picture of ambition, with a sharp suit and a smartphone perpetually in hand. He hugged Eleanor briefly, commenting on how well she looked despite everything. As she explained the letter, showing him the deed and the will, his expression shifted from surprise to calculation. The cabin, he said, could be sold quickly, providing funds for better care or even a private room. But as they talked, Eleanor sensed something off. Michael's questions veered toward the value, the taxes, and who else knew. He promised to handle the legalities, taking the documents with him. In the days that followed, Eleanor's other children, Sarah and David, called with excitement, dreaming of how the money could help with college funds for the grandkids or home renovations. Yet a nagging doubt crept in. Why hadn't Michael returned the papers? The envelope contained something she never expected. Flashback to 1968. Eleanor was 25, teaching third grade in a bustling Chicago school during the civil rights movement. The air was thick with change, protests against segregation, the assassination of Dr. King sending shockwaves through the nation. She joined marches, her voice joining thousands chanting for equality. It was at one such event that she met Robert, a 28-year-old Army captain on leave, grappling with his orders to ship out to Vietnam. He wasn't the typical soldier. He questioned the war, drawn to the hippie ideals of peace and love. They spent evenings in coffee shops, debating the American dream over cups of black coffee, the jukebox playing the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. Robert drove a shiny red Chevy convertible, and they would cruise along Lake Michigan, wind in their hair, sharing dreams of a world without conflict. One night, under the stars at a Woodstock-like festival, in a nearby field, they confessed their feelings. But duty called. Robert left for Vietnam, promising to write. His letters arrived sporadically, filled with tales of jungle patrols and the horrors of war, but also with unwavering love. Eleanor waited, but as months turned to years, she met George at a school function. He was safe, reliable, everything Robert's uncertain future wasn't. She chose stability, marrying George in 1972, burying Robert's last letter in a box. The decisions of youth echoed into her present solitude. Back in the nursing home, the tension built. Eleanor confided in her roommate, Martha, who listened with wide eyes as Eleanor whispered about the inheritance. Martha, a spry 78-year-old widow, had her own stories of lost loves from the 1970s disco era, but she urged Eleanor to protect herself. Families can turn greedy when money's involved, Martha said softly during their evening tea. Sure enough, when Sarah visited a week later, she arrived with a real estate agent in tow, eager to appraise the cabin remotely. Sarah, at 52, was a marketing executive, always on the go, her visits rare but efficient. She hugged Eleanor, then dove into questions about the property's condition, hinting that the money could fund a family vacation, something to bring everyone together. Eleanor felt a pang of hurt. Was this about her, or the windfall? David, the youngest at 48, called from California, his voice laced with enthusiasm about investing the funds in his startup. The siblings' excitement masked underlying rivalries, old resentments from childhood bubbling up. But the family secret was darker than anyone imagined. As weeks passed, Eleanor noticed discrepancies in her bank statements, small withdrawals she didn't authorize. Michael had power of attorney, granted years ago for emergencies, but now it seemed abused. She confronted him over the phone, her voice steady, despite the betrayal she felt. Michael dismissed it as administrative fees for handling the estate, but Eleanor's instincts screamed otherwise. Digging through her old box of mementos, she found Robert's letters, rereading them in the quiet of night. They spoke of a life unlived, regrets over paths not taken. Robert had survived Vietnam, scarred by the loss of comrades, and built a quiet life as a carpenter, never marrying. His will explained, he had tracked her from afar, respecting her choices, but wanting to provide in death what he couldn't in life. The cabin was more than property. It was a symbol of freedom, a place where she could have escaped the constraints of her era's expectations. Now, it became a battleground. When the lawyer knocked on her door, everything changed. The lawyer, a middle-aged woman named Miss Thompson, arrived unannounced, sent by Robert's estate to verify Eleanor's identity. She carried additional documents, including a personal note from Robert, written before his passing. In it he confessed his enduring love and revealed he had known about her family, wishing her happiness, but regretting not fighting for her. Miss Thompson explained the inheritance was ironclad, but recent inquiries from Michael had raised red flags. Attempts to contest the will, claiming Eleanor was unfit to manage it due to her age. Shocked, Eleanor realized her son's greed had driven him to undermine her. The nursing home staff, overhearing snippets, grew concerned. Lisa, the nurse, offered quiet support, helping Eleanor contact an independent advisor. Tensions escalated as the siblings convened via video call, accusations flying. Sarah defended Michael, David wavered, but Eleanor, for the first time, asserted her truth. She revealed the affair, the love that shaped her, the sacrifices for their sake. The room fell silent, virtual faces frozen in disbelief. The climax unfolded in the nursing home's visiting lounge, a sunlit space with comfortable chairs and potted plants. Michael arrived in person, documents in hand, demanding Eleanor sign over control. "It's for your own good, Mom," he insisted, his voice laced with false concern. But Eleanor, bolstered by Martha's encouragement and Lisa's presence, refused. She recounted the full story, the 1960s romance amid civil rights marches, the pain of choosing duty over passion, the life she built with their father, despite lingering regrets. Michael's face paled as she exposed his unauthorized transactions, evidence gathered with the lawyer's help. Sarah and David, listening on speakerphone, expressed horror, their own complicity in pressuring her laid bare. In that moment, Eleanor felt a cathartic release, years of silence breaking like a dam. The confrontation peaked with Michael's admission. He was in debt, desperate for the money to save his firm. Tears flowed, regrets voiced, but Eleanor's resolve held firm. In the resolution, justice prevailed quietly. With Miss Thompson's assistance, Eleanor reclaimed control, selling the cabin on her terms. The proceeds funded her care and established trusts for the grandchildren. Bypassing her children's grasp, Michael apologized, promising to repay the misused funds. Though trust was fractured, Sarah and David visited more often, their interactions laced with newfound respect. Eleanor found peace in sharing her story with fellow residents, forming deeper bonds over shared tales of lost loves and second chances. The nursing home, once a place of isolation, became a haven of solidarity. She even donated a portion to a veterans' charity in Robert's memory, honoring the man who never forgot her. Reflecting on it all, Eleanor's journey, teaches us the weight of unspoken truths and the corrosive power of greed. How many of us carry secrets from our youth that could redefine our legacies? What would you do if a long-lost love resurfaced, challenging everything? If this story moved you, drop a comment below, sharing your thoughts on family loyalties and hidden pasts. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping nursing home tales that remind us of life's enduring dramas. But wait, the real shock was still coming in ways Eleanor couldn't foresee. As months passed, she received another letter, this one from a woman claiming to be Robert's daughter, born from a brief marriage after Vietnam. The revelation opened a new chapter, connecting Eleanor to a half-family she never knew, blending regret with unexpected joy. Sarah, feeling remorse, organized a family reunion at the nursing home, where old photos from the 1960s were shared, bridging generations. David contributed by setting up a small library in the common room, stocked with books on civil rights history. Michael, in therapy for his issues, began rebuilding trust through consistent actions. Eleanor's room, once sparse, now held mementos from her past. A faded peace sign pin, a vinyl record of Dylan's greatest hits, reminders of a vibrant youth. The staff noticed the change. Lisa commented on Eleanor's renewed spark, encouraging her to write her memoirs. Martha became her confidant, swapping stories of 1970s adventures, disco nights, and women's lib rallies. Harold, the veteran, opened up about his own Vietnam scars, finding common ground in loss and resilience. The inheritance, wisely managed, allowed Eleanor small luxuries, a better wheelchair, outings to local parks, where she could feel the wind like in her Chevy days. Yet the emotional healing was profound. Forgiving her children didn't erase the betrayal, but it lightened the burden of regret. She often sat by the window, watching sunsets, pondering what ifs. What if she had chosen Robert? The past's weight eased, replaced by present contentment. That's when the nursing home staff realized the true value of listening to elders' tales. Inspired by Eleanor, they started a storytelling circle where residents shared fragments of their lives. Apollo moon landing memories, Woodstock escapades, the thrill of first cars. Eleanor's story sparked connections, reducing isolation. Her family, transformed, made amends through presence rather than promises. Michael repaid every cent. Sarah planned weekly calls. David sent care packages with nostalgic treats like old-fashioned candy. The cabin sale funded a scholarship in Robert's name for underprivileged students, echoing Eleanor's teaching legacy. As winter turned to spring, Eleanor felt a sense of closure. The secret that could have destroyed now united, proving love's endurance over time. She whispered to Robert's photo, "Thank you for remembering." Life in the nursing home continued, but with deeper meaning. Friendships forged in vulnerability, regrets turned to wisdom. What she found in that envelope changed everything, reminding us that even in our final chapters, redemption awaits. But the family secret was darker than anyone imagined in subtle ways. Buried in Robert's note was a hint of Eleanor's involvement in underground civil rights activities, smuggling literature during tense times. This added layer thrilled her grandchildren, who visited to hear first-hand accounts, turning her into a living history lesson. The nursing home buzzed with energy, residents empowered to voice their truths. Eleanor's health improved with the emotional lift, her doctor noting reduced stress. Martha confided her own secret, a brief fling with a rock musician in 1975, bonding them further. Her son's phone call that Tuesday morning brought final reconciliation. Michael, voice choked, shared how her story inspired him to prioritize family over career. They planned a trip to the cabin site, now a park, to scatter symbolic ashes of the past. Sarah organized it. David funded it. Unity restored. Eleanor, at peace, embraced her individuality, no longer defined by sacrifices. The theme of Kenj, what if faded, replaced by gratitude for what was. In closing, this tale underscores the power of facing the past. Have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed your view? Share in the comments and subscribe for more stories that explore the depths of human experience in nursing homes.